All right, so in this video, we're going to change the drone light color. So far, the drone has this nice, subtle blue color, and it's nice and calm and not very threatening. And what we'd like it to do is turn red once we aggro the drone, so it's angry. So we're going to turn the lights red when the drone is aggroed. And this is going to involve creating a dynamic material instance. Let's dive in. Now, I'm here in the drone, and this move to goal target is really what we're interested in because we're calling this event, move to goal target, right here in the sphere overlap event. And also in FPS character, when we shoot the drone, we're calling move to goal target. So move to goal target is really where the drone gets angry. So we're going to be focusing on doing something here. Now, what do we want to do? We want to turn the lights red. Let's take a look at our drone mesh here. Here it is in the details panel. Let's browse to that asset and double click it to open it and take a look at our drone. Now, I'd like to see the material that's being used here. Remember, we set that to Embellica Drone Bomb 1. Now, if we go and browse to that asset, here it is. It's a material. Now, if we were to create a material instance based on this, we could change parameters in this material, such as certain colors. Now, just to show you how that works, let's right-click on it and select Create Material Instance. Now, let's open this new material instance, and this is what the material instance looks like. By default, it's shown on a sphere like this. Now, we have a bunch of different things we can see here, and a lot of these are parameters in this material. And we can override these parameters. And the one I'm interested in is right here. It says Team Color. Now, if we check this checkbox, we now have the ability to override this with our own value rather than light blue. And we can even select a color from the color picker. We've seen this before when changing material instances for the barrels. So if we wanted to, we can select a red color here. And now we see that this is what the material looks like with red. Now, we created a material instance, and our drone isn't using that material instance. So we don't see it here on our drones. And in fact, we don't even need to set the drone's material to this material instance because we're going to create one dynamically so that we can change these parameters at runtime during the game. So we don't really need this material instance. You can leave it there or delete it, whichever you prefer. I just wanted to show you that there is a parameter in this material called Team Color, and that is what we're interested in changing. So let's close Bellica Drone. I don't need health pickup. I don't need ammo pickup. What I do want is the drone pawn. Now, the drone pawn has a material assigned to its mesh, but we can change that material, and we want to change it to something called a dynamic material instance. We just created a material instance, but we want a dynamic material instance. Those you can change the parameters of at runtime. Now we're going to do this in the construction script. That way we can have that dynamic material instance already set up before the game even runs. Now the way to set this up is we first need to get the drone's material. So let's get our drone mesh. We'll drag that in. And let's get the material from that. The drone mesh variable here is a skeletal mesh component. And skeletal mesh components have a function called getMaterial. So let's call getMaterial. And notice it has an input of type integer called elementIndex. Now our mesh has 3 material indices. We can go back and take a look at our mesh and see that there are 3 elements here. But it's really only using the first one. If we click this little curved arrow here, we'll reset that to its default value, which is none. And notice if I set elements 1 and 2 to none, our drone still looks the same. So it's really only using that first element. So that's all we need to care about. So back in Drone Pawn, we're getting the material at index 0, which is the first one here. Essentially, it's Embellica Drone Bomb 1. So we have the material. What we'd like to do is create a dynamic material instance from this material. And we can create a dynamic material instance by dragging off of our construction script pin and typing create dynamic material instance and getting that function. Now it takes a parent, which is a material interface object reference. Well, that's what is returned by getMaterial, so we can simply plug that in. And now that we're creating a dynamic material instance, we need a variable to store this value. That way we can access that variable during the game and change parameters on it. So we're going to promote this to a variable. Let's right-click on the return value, select Promote to Variable, and call this Dynamic Material. Now we have a variable for this. Now we've created a material, but we'd actually like to set our mesh material to this dynamic material instance. So I'm going to hold Control and drag out drone mesh to get that value, drag off of this, and type set material. And the set material function allows us to set the material, and it also takes an index. We're setting material index 0, and we're going to set it to this dynamic material instance. So now our mesh is using this dynamic material instance, which we're creating here in the construction script and storing in a variable. We're doing all of this simply so that we can change parameters on this dynamic material instance at runtime. Let's compile and hit save, and everything should still look the same. We're using this dynamic material instance, but it's based off of that original material, so it should still look the same, at least until we change parameters on it. So let's talk about how to change those parameters. Well, we have this dynamic material variable, and at runtime during the game, we'd like to set the value of one of its parameters. We're interested in that team color. Well, we can use this node, setVectorParameterValue. It takes a target for which we're going to use our dynamic material. And it takes a parameter name, so it knows which parameter we're trying to set, and it takes a value. Now, this value is a color. Specifically, it's called a linear color, which is basically a vector with red, green, blue, and alpha values. Now, we can just hardcode a color and pass that in. What you can do is click on the blue input pin for value, drag off and release, and select Make Linear Color. And this allows us to make a linear color and choose those red, green, blue, and alpha values. So I'd like you to change the light color. When aggroing the drone, in other words, with our Move to Goal Target custom event in the drone pawn, use setVectorParameterValue. Use that node and drag off of the value input to make a linear color, so we can use a new color to set those lights to. If you want red, just set everything to 0 except for red, and of course alpha needs to be 1, otherwise you won't see red. So choose color values, and don't forget that the parameter name needs to be team color. That's the vector parameter we want to set. So pause the video and do this now. Okay, so let's go back to our event graph, and here's Move to Goal Target. Here's where we'd like to change the color. So let's get our dynamic material here. And we're going to use setVectorParameterValue. We're going to hook this up, and we're going to choose team color for the parameter name. And we're going to drag off of the value and make linear color. Now we see we have red, green, blue, and alpha values. Well, the alpha definitely needs to be 1, as a 0 would be completely transparent. And I'm going to set red to 1 and leave the rest at 0. So let's compile and press play. So the lights are blue. Let's aggro. And it was a little fast, but you could see they turned red. Well, I don't need to run up to it. I can shoot it. There we go. See how it turns red? Awesome. Okay, so we are setting material instance parameters now. We're changing the light colors from blue to red because we created a dynamic material instance based on our drone's material. We did this in the construction script and then used our dynamic material variable to set the vector parameter team color to the color that we chose. Great job. I'll see you soon.